Good morning and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Wednesday, the 2nd of February. Hey, it's Groundhog Day. Today I want to pick up on something from the weekend, from the Freedom Convoy. Something that I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm having trouble making sense of it. Thinking about the generation of people that have been raised up that would be so disrespectful that they would dance on the grave of the unknown soldier, that they would, I don't want to say desecrate, that's a big word, but they would take the meaning of what Terry Fox had stood for and try to use his statue to change the way we think. He is a true Canadian hero, and what they did to him, his statue, is inappropriate at the minimum, and at the worst maybe is a desecration. I am very concerned about what it is to be a Canadian these days. I am proud to be Canadian. As I said yesterday, I am proud to be someone who was raised up to acknowledge the work that has gone before me to make our education system and our healthcare system and our system of equity, that I can be a female priest in this country, says as much about the country as it does about the Anglican Church of Canada. Two things are not, they're separate. Obviously, church and state are separate. However, even if the Anglican Church had said, yes, women can be priests, we could live in a place that said that no, in a country that said we can't. Look at Afghanistan right now. When I think about that person dancing on the grave of the tomb of the unknown soldier, at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and the number of people standing by watching them, not pulling them off, not telling them to stop, but standing there watching and seeming to have great pleasure in it, it makes me ill. It makes me sick to my stomach. My husband is one who has sworn an oath to defend our country. He has deployed. He has put himself in harm's way. He is willing to put himself in harm's way for the very rights of the people who came to Ottawa to protest what the government's decisions have been. That is a country that we live in, that we have men and women who are willing to lay down their lives so that we might have life, that we might be able to pursue a life that has opportunities for work and education and protesting on Capitol Hill. Do we not owe them the minimum of respect to at least acknowledge what they have done? Where that person was dancing was on the spot where Corporal Cirillo was killed. How quickly we forget. Blood was shed on Canadian soil right there. And yet, dancing in protest, dancing in glee, because look at us, this is who we are, and we get to do what we want, and everyone else. That is not what the thousands and thousands of Canadians who have died in combat said when they went off to war, when they stood on guard at that very war memorial. They were not saying to everybody else. They were saying to everyone else, I honor you and I respect you and I serve you and I serve for your rights as Canadian citizens. And what do they ask of us? They don't ask much. They really don't. But we owe them so much. We owe them our lifestyle. We owe them the country that we live in. We owe them the fact that we can have free elections and we can protest on Parliament Hill. We owe them because of the work they have done. We have a prime minister and premiers who and doctors and politicians and ministers of this and that and everything else that are doing their level best for the most of the people. They're trying hard to serve the whole community, not just some members of it. When people talk about their freedom being stolen by the government, I think they need to go back and check out their history books. People are comparing Prime Minister Trudeau and the government of Canada and the governments of our provinces and territories, they're comparing it to Nazi Germany. They're comparing it to communist Russia. And I think what we really need to do right now is take a step back and remember something else. Remember that it was because people stood by and did nothing when people started using rhetoric like this, when we use the other word, like those people. That's what happened, because in Germany, no one stood up and said, the vast masses did not stand up and say this is wrong. My guess is that they hunched in fear and said, I won't get involved. I don't want to lose. I don't want people looking at me. I don't want to be accused of that. So I'm going to be quiet until 6 million Jews were killed, and gypsies, and homosexuals, and people who just didn't look like the right people. People who spoke against the government. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Lutheran pastor, who had the courage to speak up and speak out against Hitler, he was killed for his beliefs. We can stand back and watch as some small part of our community, of our communities, of our country speaks loudly and violently. I know that they weren't violent. There was minimum violence. But how quickly will it happen? The one person was actually stating that we need to have our own January 6th. The people need to die on our parliament steps. That person is a Canadian. If he's spoken it, other people believe it. Are you ready for that to be your Canada? What will happen to you if that becomes our Canada? We must get back to basics. The basics of what it is to be a Canadian. To be proud to wear the Canada flag when we go overseas. To be able to know that people used to consider Canadians polite and considerate and compassionate and kind. I don't see that now. What I saw on Saturday on the news, that was not compassionate or kind or considerate. The things that people were saying, the actions they were taking, dancing on the grave of the unknown soldier. There is a person in there. There's a body buried there. And someone had the audacity to dance on their grave. And no one stepped up quickly to say stop. People parked their cars on the cenotaph. They knew what it was, and they knew what they were doing. We don't do that as Canadians. We honor our fallen. We support those who have fallen, whether they're in the military or not. We reach out and we help people stand up. We encourage people. We welcome refugees. We reach out in communities and build splash pads like in Edgerton to help the families and the kids. We have community things like Habitat for Humanity and food banks. We have children's services. We have volunteer places. We have helping hands. We have all of these things that are meant to help those who are needing a hand up. That is what it is to be Canadian. That is what our soldiers fight for. Right now, we know that in Afghanistan, girls are not allowed to be educated, when just a few years ago they were. A great deal and part of what our Canadian soldiers did was help to rebuild schools and to help those young women to be able to be educated. And now they are being persecuted. They are not able to go to school. Women are beginning to wear burqas again for their own safety. That is happening in Afghanistan, and it only took a few short years. In the Ukraine, people are scared because Russia is sitting on their doorstep playing chicken with the world. That is a reality that people are facing. They wake up in the morning not knowing if this is the day a bomb will come flying through their living room, whether or not they'll have a home to cook a meal in at the end of the day, whether they too will be refugees in a world that is speaking so strongly against refugees. We need to come back to being who we are called to be as Canadians. We need to recognize the importance of respect. The respect that is due the unknown soldier. The respect that is due Corporal Cirillo. The respect that is due every member of our Canadian Armed Forces who get up every morning, don the uniform, and go to work knowing that at any time they might have to come home to their families and say, I have to go. I have to go to the Ukraine. I have to go to Latvia. I have to go to northern Manitoba. I have to go to a long-term care center in Quebec. I have to go to a hospital in Edmonton. I have to go to help to shore up the banks of an overflowing river in Manitoba or New Brunswick. I have to go help fight fires or build sandbags for flooding in BC. That is what we expect of our Canadian soldiers, sailors, and air personnel. They should be able to expect something of us, that we would truly be Canadians. Canadians who are compassionate, kind, respectful, and willing to stand up to those who would be disrespectful. We need to take back our country. We need to bring it back to what it was intended to be, what it has been for us, what it can be for our children and grandchildren. A place of hope, a place of true freedom, a freedom that acknowledges that with rights come responsibilities, one for the other, not just for the self. I invite you to take some time this day to pray about the future of our country, the generations that are coming after us, and what they will bring. We are at a crossroads. We can allow people to think it's only all about them, and we will end up someday in a position of saying, how did we get here? Because we can't get back. Or we can choose to make good decisions that allow us to treat one another and ourselves with respect, hope, dignity, and integrity. The choice is ours, and we have to begin to make that choice today. God bless you. I hope that you have a good day, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.